The Episcopal Church in the Philippines is a province of the Anglican Communion, comprising the country of the Philippines. It was first established by the Episcopal Church of the United States. It was founded in 1901 by American missionaries led by Charles Henry Brent, who served as the first resident bishop. It became an autonomous province of the Anglican Communion on May 1, 1990. At present, the Episcopal Church has 7 dioceses. It is also responsible for founding and overseeing institutions such as St. Luke's Medical Center, Brent International School, St. Stephen's High School, and Trinity University of Asia. Its principal ministerial training institution is St. Andrew's Theological Seminary. The current Prime Bishop is Renato Abibico. Its national headquarters are in Cathedral Heights, New Manila, Quezon City. The church is in a concordat of full communion with the Philippine Independent Church and is a member of both the Christian Conference of Asia and the National Council of Churches in the Philippines. History: the military chaplaincy and AMP, the Church for the Expatriates, the ECP, virtually began with the first Episcopal worship service conducted in the Philippines by the Rev. Charles Pierce, an Episcopal Church chaplain of the U.S. Armed Forces that occupied Manila in 1898. This service was conducted on September 4, 1898 for the Americans and other English-speaking residents in Manila. The first Episcopal Church worship service conducted for Filipinos took place on December 25, 1898. In April 1899, Hugh Nethercott and James Smiley of the Brotherhood of St. Andrew arrived to assist the American chaplains in the work. In September 1899, Frederick R. Graves, who was then serving as the Bishop of Shanghai in China, visited Manila. Appointed to oversee American church work in the Philippines and later bishop in charge, he held worship services in the home of a British couple. He confirmed 5 English-speaking persons and advised his congregation to build a church. He also received the first 7 Filipinos into the Episcopal Church. The first Episcopal Church baptisms in Manila were done in 1900 by U.S. Army chaplain John Marvino when he baptized 3 Amoy-speaking nationals and 12 more by the end of the year. These baptisms formally started Episcopal mission work among the Chinese in Manila, the missionary district of PEC-USA, from being a mere outreach chaplaincy of the Episcopal Church chaplains of the U.S. Occupation Armed Forces in the Philippines, temporarily placed under the oversight of Bishop Frederick Graves. It was officially created as the missionary district of the Philippine Islands of the Protestant Episcopal Church of the United States by the PEC-USA General Convention held in San Francisco on October 4–11, 1901. The same convention elected the Rev. Charles Henry Brent as bishop. In December 1901, Brent was consecrated and became the first bishop of the missionary district under the jurisdiction of PEC-USA. His successor, Governor Frank Mosier, served from 1920 to 1941. From October 11, 1901, when this church was officially established in the Philippines, it took the church almost 36 years to produce its first Filipino clergyman, with the ordination of Eduardo Longad, Albert Masfera, and Mark Zulu into the Sacred Order of Deacons on January 25, 1937. It took another 22 years to produce the first Filipino Episcopal bishop, with the consecration of Benito C. Cabanban as suffragan bishop on February 24, 1959. The Philippine Episcopal Church. In October 1937, the missionary district of the Philippine Islands was renamed Philippine Episcopal Church through the action of the House of Bishops of PEC-USA's Cincinnati General Convention. This signified a change in status of the Philippine Church from that of a missionary district to a diocese under PECUSA. 34 years later, PECUSA granted the PEC request to divide the lone diocese into 3 dioceses: the dioceses of Central, Northern, and Southern Philippines. Each had a Filipino diocesan bishop, Bishop Cabanban, Bishop Eduardo Longad, and Bishop Constancio Mong Uramas, respectively. With 3 dioceses, the PEC was organized and operated like a church province in the Anglican Communion. However, unlike the other church provinces, the PEC did not have a metropolitan authority because it was still under the jurisdiction of PECUSA. The 3 dioceses were considered dioceses of both the PEC and the Episcopal Church in the USA. As a diocese, the PEC had its own constitution and canons, National Council, National Biennial Convention, House of Bishops, and National Office, among others. Perhaps ECUSA allowed the PEC to operate in such manner in anticipation of its becoming an autonomous church. The full autonomy of the Episcopal Church in the Philippines. Indeed, on May 1, 1990, the PEC was officially weaned from its mother church, ECUSA. On that historic day, it was inaugurated as an autonomous church and took its place as a church province in the Anglican Communion with the name Episcopal Church in the Philippines. When this church was admitted as a missionary district, its first missionary bishop, Charles Henry Brent, unlike other Protestant missionaries, had no intention of converting Filipino Roman Catholics to Anglicanism. As a consequence, his missionary focus was in those parts of the islands that had not previously been evangelized in the mountain provinces and in Mindanao. In Manila, missionary work was also done among the non-Christian Chinese community. In Manila, Bishop Brent considered his ministry to the American community should be his main focus. He wrote, "From every point of view, the most important part of our work is among Americans and other English-speaking people." Quote, "One of the first things he did was to build a cathedral in downtown Manila, the Cathedral of St. Mary and St. John, which was destroyed during the war and later rebuilt in Quezon City. It was at the time that part of the cathedral congregation formed of the Church of the Holy Trinity, now located in the upscale village of Forbes Park, Makati City. Holy Trinity's priest-director from its beginning had always been an expatriate, and its congregation was for the most part of expatriates. In recent years this has changed considerably, and at the present it is an even mixture of Chinese, American, European, and Filipino. For the physical health needs of his constituency, Brent also established St. Luke's Hospital. He also endorsed and supported the establishment of St. Luke's Nursing Training School to answer the need for well-trained nurses to serve the hospital. For the educational needs and in response to requests from the American parents for a boarding school for the children, Bishop Brent founded a school in Baguio City for American boys. First called the Baguio School and later Brent School, this school is now known as Brent International School Baguio. At present, it is one of 4 Brent International Schools under the umbrella of a mother corporation called Brent International Schools Inc. The others are Brent International School Manila, Binan, Subic, and Boracay. In addition to children of expatriates, a good number, if not the majority, of enrollees in the Brent schools are Filipinos from well-to-do families. With regard to starting missionary work and establishing a church for and among the unchurched, Bishop Brent was against proselytization. Having observed the extensive work of the Roman Catholic Church in the islands, he decided not to put up an altar over and against another altar. He adopted a policy of non-interference under ordinary circumstances with the adherents of other churches. Along this line, he decided to concentrate the mission work of the newly established church on the Americans and other Caucasians in the country, as well as on those geographic areas where there were non-Christians or where the unchurched were not being served by any church. At the time, most non-Christians in this country could only be found among the migrant Chinese in Manila and the indigenous people in the north and in the south, as well the Muslims in Mindanao, the pagan natives of the north and of the south, and the Muslims living in communities in mountain jungles, had fought against the subjugation and rule of the colonial Spanish regime and had not effectively fallen under the rule and governance of Spain. It was to these people and communities that this church went to seek its members through conversions and baptisms. This church succeeded in its mission and evangelism work among the indigenous people but failed among the Muslims. It converted only 5 young Muslims girls by uprooting these girls from the communities in Mindanao and bringing them to the Cordillera in the north, where they lived and grew with the missionaries in Christian communities. They were educated, got married, and settled in the Cordillera and did not go back to the Muslim roots in the south. Bishop Brent's policy of not putting an altar against another altar and the initial and subsequent concentration of missionary work on areas inhabited by non-Christians explains why most of the members of the ECP are predominantly from tribal communities. This also explains why the ECP's work is concentrated in the northern and southern regions of the country. In like manner, it explains why it took almost 4 decades for this church to produce its first Filipino clergyman and more than half a century to produce its first Filipino bishop, all of whom were from tribal communities. It was this church that introduced literacy among these people and communities. It was this church that first established schools, hospitals, clinics and roads in these oft-neglected communities. In time, the government was able to establish public schools, hospitals, and rural health centers for these communities. As a result, this church phased out some of its schools and clinics in favor of the government providing such basic services needed by these communities. Dioceses. At present, the ECP consists of 7 dioceses, 5 in Luzon and 2 in Mindanao. A 8th diocese in the Visayas is also being contemplated, starting with the new congregation in Cebu City, the Episcopal Diocese of Central Philippines with C in Manila, the Episcopal Diocese of Southern Philippines with C in Cotabato City, the Episcopal Diocese of Northern Philippines with C in Bontoc, Mount Province, the Episcopal Diocese of Northern Luzon with C in Tabuk, Kalinga, the Episcopal Diocese of North Central Philippines with C in Baguio City, the Episcopal Diocese of Santiago with C in Santiago City, the Episcopal Diocese of Davao in Davao City. Gallery, the National Cathedral, the Episcopal Diocese of Central Philippines. The Episcopal Diocese of Northern Philippines, the Episcopal Diocese of Northern Luzon. The Episcopal Diocese of North Central Philippines.